I want you to picture two people living in the same city, in the same kind of neighborhood with the same access to everything. The same grocery stores, the same rent range, the same lifestyle opportunities. On paper, nothing about their environment is different. The only difference is what they do with their money. The first person earns $120,000 a year. If you walk into their apartment, it looks impressive immediately. A large television is mounted neatly on the wall, the kind that feels premium the moment you see it. The furniture is expensive and carefully chosen. The phone on the table is one of the latest models. The closet is full of clothes, good brands, good variety. But many of them haven't been worn more than a few times. Everything signals success. But if you stay there for a few more minutes, you start noticing things that aren't visible at first glance. The kitchen has gadgets that were used once and then forgotten. There are multiple subscriptions quietly charging every month. Streaming services, apps, tools, none of them large individually, but together they add up. The bank account is lower than expected for someone earning this much. The credit card balance is higher than comfortable. And beneath all of this, there's a subtle pressure. A feeling that money is always being chased but never really staying. Now walk into the second apartment. This person earns $55,000 a year. The space is simpler. There's no attempt to impress. The television is smaller. The furniture is basic. The wardrobe is limited. But everything here is used. Everything has a purpose. Nothing feels wasted. And when you look deeper, the difference becomes clear. This person has close to 2 years of expenses saved. They invest consistently every month, without fail. They don't feel anxious when checking their account. They don't worry about unexpected expenses in the same way. There is no visible luxury, but there is stability, control, and calm. Same city, half the income, completely different financial reality. This is not a story about earning more. It is a story about understanding something most people never learn. Every dollar you spend is not just spending, it is capital allocation. And most people are making poor allocation decisions every single day, without even realizing they are making them. Reframe. The problem starts with how we are taught to think about money. Most people grow up with a very simple model. You earn money, you spend money. And if you want more, you try to earn more. That's the entire framework. There is no deeper layer to it. But this model is incomplete, and because of that, it leads to predictable outcomes. Money is not just something you use. It is stored potential. It is future time. It is optionality. Every dollar you have represents a decision. A decision between what that money could become if you let it grow, and what you are about to convert it into right now. If you invest it, it compounds. If you spend it, it disappears. If you repeatedly spend it on things that don't truly matter, it quietly erodes your future. Most people never pause to think about this trade. They don't see money as something that can grow on its own. They see it as something that exists to be used. And so they spend automatically, emotionally, and repeatedly, not realizing that every decision is shaping their financial trajectory. Once you start seeing money differently, your behavior begins to shift. You stop asking, "Can I afford this?" because that question is too shallow. Instead, you start asking, "What am I giving up for this?" And that question is much harder to ignore, because now every purchase forces a comparison between the present and the future, between consumption and growth, between comfort now and control later. That shift, from spending to allocating, is where everything begins. Rule 1. Every purchase has a hidden future cost. Most people think the cost of something is the number on the price tag. But that is only the first layer. The real cost is what that money could have become if you had not spent it. Let's take a simple example. Imagine you spend $5,000 on something non-essential. Maybe a television upgrade, maybe a piece of furniture, maybe a short vacation that wasn't planned. The immediate cost is $5,000. That's what leaves your account. But if that same $5,000 had been invested, even at a modest return, over 10 to 15 years it could grow into $12,000 or $15,000. That means the real cost of your decision is not $5,000. It is $12,000 or more of your future. Now extend this thinking across multiple decisions. A $1,000 phone upgrade every couple of years. A few $100s a month in unnecessary spending. occasional impulse purchases that feel harmless in the moment. Individually, none of these decisions seem significant, but together, over time, they become massive. Not because of the amounts themselves, but because of what those amounts could have compounded into. This is the part most people never see. There is no bill that shows up saying, "You just lost $80,000 of future wealth." There is no notification. There is no visible consequence. And there is only a future that is smaller than it could have been. And that's why this rule matters. Because once you understand that every purchase carries a hidden future cost, spending stops feeling casual. It becomes intentional, not restrictive, just real. Rule 2. You are either a consumer or a capital allocator. When it comes to money, there are only two identities. You are either a consumer or you are a capital allocator. The consumer sees money as something to be used. Their focus is on immediate satisfaction. What they want, what they like, what improves their current lifestyle. When they earn more, they upgrade. When they feel bored, they spend. When they see something new, they consider buying it. The capital allocator sees money differently. They see it as something that can grow. Their focus is not on what feels good now, but on what builds over time. When they earn more, they invest more. When they have extra money, they look for where it can compound. When they spend, they do it with awareness of what they are giving up. At the beginning, these two people can look almost identical. Same income, same job, same environment. But over time, the difference becomes obvious. The consumer builds a lifestyle. The allocator builds assets. The consumer's expenses increase. The allocator's investments increase. The consumer becomes more dependent on income. The allocator becomes less dependent on it. And this difference compounds. Not immediately, but steadily. Until one person has built control and the other has built obligations. The mistake most people make is assuming that higher income automatically leads to better financial outcomes. It doesn't. What matters is not how much you earn, but how much of it you convert into assets that grow. Rule 3. Lifestyle. Inflation is the silent trap. Most people don't lose financially because of one big mistake. They lose because of a pattern that feels completely normal. As income increases, lifestyle increases. You get a raise, so you move to a slightly better apartment. You start earning more, so you upgrade your car. You begin to spend more on food, travel, and comfort. None of these decisions feel extreme. In fact, they feel deserved. And that's exactly why they are dangerous. Because each upgrade increases your baseline cost of living. And once your baseline increases, it becomes your new normal. Now you need more money just to maintain your current life. And that means your dependence on income increases. This is the part people don't notice. They think they are progressing because their lifestyle is improving. But at the same time, their flexibility is decreasing. The more your lifestyle expands, the less room you have to step back. The more you earn, the more you need to keep earning. And this is how people get trapped. Not by failure, but by success that was never controlled. You can see this clearly when you compare two people. One earns $80,000 and spends $70,000. The other earns $150,000 and spends $140,000. Both save $10,000 a year. But one has twice the income. The difference is not income. It is control. Lifestyle inflation hides inside progress. It doesn't feel like a mistake. It feels like growth. But in reality, it quietly limits your ability to build wealth. Rule 4. Upgrade. Culture is engineered to keep you stuck. There is something important you need to understand about modern consumption. Most of it is not driven by necessity. It is driven by design. Every year, there is a new version of everything. A slightly better phone, a slightly better car, a slightly improved design. And none of these changes are dramatic enough to be essential, but they are just enough to create dissatisfaction with what you already have. Your phone still works. It makes calls, runs apps, takes photos, and does everything it was designed to do. Your car still functions. It gets you from one place to another reliably. Your furniture still serves its purpose. It supports you, it looks acceptable, and it does not fail you in any meaningful way. But that is not the standard you are shown. The standard you are shown is always slightly ahead of what you own. And that gap, that small, controlled gap, is what drives the urge to upgrade. Because if you can be made to feel like what you have is outdated, you will start looking for what is new. And once you start looking, you eventually start buying. This is not accidental. It is a system. And the system works extremely well because it does not force you to spend. It simply makes you uncomfortable enough to choose to spend on your own. Now look at the long-term effect of this behavior. If someone upgrades their phone every 2 years, even when the current one works perfectly, that is roughly $1,000 every cycle. Over 20 years, that alone becomes $10,000 to $15,000 spent on something that was never necessary. Now apply the same pattern to cars, furniture, electronics, clothing, and lifestyle upgrades. Over a lifetime, this is not a small leak. It is a massive transfer of capital away from your future. The people who build wealth understand something very simple. Functionality defines necessity, not novelty. They don't upgrade because something new exists. They upgrade when something stops serving its purpose. And that difference, repeated consistently, becomes one of the biggest financial advantages you can have. Rule 5. Every object has a second cost. When you buy something, you are not just paying for the object itself. You are also paying for everything that comes with it. This is what most people ignore. Let's take a practical example. Imagine you buy a home gym setup for $3,000. At first, it feels like a smart purchase. You tell yourself you'll use it regularly, save time, and improve your health. But the cost does not end at $3,000. That equipment takes up space in your home. Space has value. In many cities, the cost of space can be calculated per square foot. Even if you don't think about it directly, you are paying for that space through rent or ownership. Now add maintenance. Cleaning, organizing, occasional replacements, upgrades. Add mental attention. Every item you own occupies a small part of your awareness. It needs to be managed, maintained, and eventually dealt with. And then comes the biggest cost: opportunity. That $3,000 is no longer available to invest. It is no longer compounding. It is locked into something that will most likely depreciate over time. Now imagine that you don't use that equipment as much as you expected. Maybe you use it for a few weeks, then occasionally, then rarely. At that point, the cost is no longer just financial. It becomes psychological. Because now you are maintaining something that does not add value to your life, while quietly reducing your future potential. And this pattern repeats everywhere. Unused subscriptions, rarely worn clothes, kitchen tools that seemed useful at the time, each one small, each one justified. But together, they create a system of drag. And that drag slows everything down. Financial progress is not only about what you invest, it is also about what you avoid locking your money into. Rule 6. The lifestyle multiplier effect. One of the most underestimated concepts in personal finance is that purchases rarely exist in isolation. Most purchases create a chain of additional expenses. This is called the multiplier effect. Let's take a simple example. You buy a car. That seems like a single purchase. But now you also have fuel costs, insurance, maintenance, repairs, parking, and sometimes even upgrades or accessories. The original purchase triggers a system of ongoing costs. Now take something larger. You upgrade your home. Now you have higher rent or mortgage, higher maintenance costs, more furniture to fill the space, higher utility bills, and often a lifestyle that expands to match the environment. Or consider a hobby. You decide to start photography. You buy a camera. Then you need lenses, storage, software, accessories, maybe even travel to use it properly. What started as one purchase becomes an ecosystem. And this is where people lose control. Because they only evaluate the first cost. They don't calculate the full system that comes with it. A $5,000 decision can easily become a $10,000 or $15,000 commitment over time. Now reverse this. When you avoid a major purchase, you don't just save the initial amount. You avoid the entire chain of associated costs. This is why restraint is so powerful, because it does not just protect your money once, it protects it repeatedly. Rule 7. Optionality is the real goal. Most people measure success by what they can show: the house they live in, the car they drive, the lifestyle they present. But these are not indicators of real wealth. Real wealth is optionality. It is the ability to make decisions without being forced by financial pressure. Can you leave a job that drains you without panic? Can you take a break when life requires it? Can you say no to opportunities that don't align with your values? Can you handle unexpected situations without stress? These are the real measures of financial strength, and they are not built by consumption. They are built by margin. Margin between what you earn and what you spend. If that margin is small, your options are limited. If that margin is large, your options expand. Now compare two people again. One earns a high income but spends almost all of it. They have a lifestyle, but they have no flexibility. They are dependent on maintaining that income. The other earns less but saves aggressively. They may not look wealthy, but they have the ability to make decisions freely. That is power. And power is what money is supposed to give you. Not things, not status, not temporary satisfaction, but control over your own life. Rule 8. Define enough before you scale. There is a problem that affects almost everyone who starts earning more money. They never define what enough looks like, and because they never define it, it keeps moving. You earn more, so your expectations increase. Your expectations increase, so your lifestyle expands. Your lifestyle expands, so your expenses rise. And then something interesting happens. You feel like you are progressing, but financially, you are standing in the same place. Because every increase in income is being absorbed by an increase in lifestyle. There is no accumulation, only expansion. This is why people earning $200,000 can feel just as financially stressed as people earning $70,000. Not because they don't earn enough, but because they never decided what was enough. Now consider the opposite. Imagine someone decides early, this is the level of lifestyle I actually need. A comfortable home, a reliable car, a simple but functional life. And then they stop upgrading beyond that point. Now, something powerful happens. Every increase in income beyond that level does not upgrade their lifestyle. It builds their future. It gets invested. It compounds. And over time, that creates acceleration. Because now, income is not being consumed. It is being converted into assets. This is the difference between someone who keeps running and someone who eventually reaches a point where money starts working for them. Defining enough creates a finish line. And without a finish line, you are just running in circles. Rule 9. Your environment controls your behavior. Most people believe financial discipline is about willpower. It's not. Willpower is unreliable. It depends on your mood, your energy, your stress levels, and your environment. You can be disciplined for a few days, maybe even a few weeks, but eventually something slips. You get tired, you get stressed, you justify a decision, and then the pattern returns. This is why relying on discipline alone does not work. The real solution is environment, because behavior follows structure. If spending is frictionless, you will spend. If saving is automatic, you will save. If investing happens before money reaches your account, you will invest. So instead of trying to control your behavior directly, you change the system around you. You remove saved cards from apps. You delay purchases by 24 hours. You automate investments the moment income arrives. You reduce exposure to unnecessary triggers. These changes may seem small, but they are powerful because they remove the need to constantly make the right decision. They make the right decision the default. And once your system is aligned, your results become consistent. Not because you are stronger, but because your environment supports you. Rule 10. Wealth is built by what you don't buy. This is one of the most overlooked truths about money. People think wealth is built by what you invest. But in reality, wealth is built just as much by what you don't buy. Every purchase you avoid is capital that remains available. And that capital, when invested, compounds. Now think about this over time. Every time you choose not to upgrade unnecessarily, every time you skip an impulse purchase, every time you resist lifestyle inflation, you are not just saving money, you are preserving capital. And preserved capital is what builds wealth. Because wealth is not created in one big moment. It is created through consistency. Small decisions repeated over years. Most people are waiting for a big opportunity, a big investment, a big breakthrough. But the reality is much simpler. Wealth is built quietly, in decisions that no one sees, in purchases you never make, in upgrades you avoid, in restraint that compounds over time. And that's why it is so difficult, because it requires discipline in moments that feel insignificant. But those moments are where everything is decided. Deeper philosophy: why most people stay stuck. At some point, this stops being about money and starts being about identity. Because most spending is not logical, it is emotional. People don't just buy things because they need them. They buy things because of how those things make them feel. Better, more successful, less behind, more in control. Spending becomes a way to manage emotion, and for a short time, it works. You buy something new and you feel good, but that feeling fades. And when it fades, the pattern repeats. This creates a cycle. You feel pressure, you spend, you feel relief, it fades, pressure returns, and over time, this cycle becomes expensive, very expensive. Now compare this to someone who builds financial strength. They save consistently, they invest consistently, they build a buffer, they create stability, and slowly something changes. They no longer need spending to feel secure. Because they are secure. Their confidence does not come from what they own. It comes from what they control. And that breaks the cycle. Now spending is not emotional. It is intentional. And that shift changes everything. The final loop: bring it back. Go back to those two people at the beginning. Same city, same environment, different outcomes. The difference was not intelligence. It was not luck. It was not even income. It was how they treated money. One saw money as something to spend. The other saw it as something to allocate. One built a lifestyle, the other built control. And over time, control always wins. Because money is not about what you can buy. It is about what you no longer have to tolerate. The ability to say no. The ability to step away. The ability to choose your direction without pressure. That is what money is supposed to give you. Not more things. Not more upgrades. Not more consumption. But more freedom. And the people who understand this, stop chasing a better lifestyle and start building a better position. And once you reach that point, everything changes. Because now, money is no longer something you spend. It is something that works for you.